The price of freedom. Freedom did not arrive like a celebration. It came quietly, almost cautiously, as if even it was unsure whether the frontier would allow it to stay. By the second morning after the riders left, the Crow Ranch felt different. Not empty, just watched. Clara sensed it in the way the wind carried sounds farther than before, in how a hawk circled longer over the fields, in how the road beyond the fence seemed suddenly important to people who had never cared where it led. Elias Crow rose before dawn as always, splitting wood, feeding stock, repairing what needed mending, but now every movement felt measured by unseen eyes. In town, conversation stopped when his name was mentioned. At the bank, credit was suddenly unavailable. At the supply depot, orders were delayed without explanation. A cattle buyer who had shaken Elias's hand just weeks earlier failed to appear. No one accused him outright. The frontier was too clever for that. It punished him the way it always did, slowly, quietly, hoping he would bend without forcing them to break him. Clara watched the toll settle into his shoulders and knew, deep down, that it was happening because of her. One evening, as the children slept and the house creaked in the cooling air, she placed a small pile of coins on the table, money she had earned mending clothes, teaching Ruth letters, helping neighbors who were kind enough to look past rumor. She told him she would leave before she cost his children their future. Elias pushed the coins back toward her without anger or softness, only certainty. He told her she was not a debt to be managed or a problem to be solved. He told her she was free, and free people chose where they stood. That was the moment Clara realized freedom did not mean being protected forever. It meant standing up when protection became costly. The next morning, she rode into town alone. Heads turned. Whispers followed. In the general store, men paused mid-sentence, expecting her to keep her eyes down the way she once had. She didn't. She told them her name. She told them she had been sold, not because she was weak, but because the law allowed cruelty to wear the mask of order. She told them Elias Crow had not bought her to own her, but to end what should never have been allowed. When a man scoffed and asked why they should all pay for one girl, Clara answered without raising her voice. She asked them to remember their daughters. That single sentence cut deeper than any accusation. Silence followed, not empty silence, but the kind that forces memory to speak. An older woman admitted a truth she had buried for decades. A shopkeeper admitted Elias had never cheated him once. By afternoon, a wagon of supplies rolled toward the Crow Ranch without being asked. By evening, another followed. Notes were left. Payments deferred. Not charity, respect. Power does not surrender easily, and the sheriff returned one final time, alone this time, with papers meant to frighten rather than enforce. Elias read them once and tore them cleanly in half, not in defiance, but in refusal. He told the sheriff he was standing on private land and could leave. The man hesitated, looking at the wagons, the neighbors, the children watching from the porch. He left without another word and never returned, because the frontier had made a quiet decision of its own. It was easier to stand with Elias Crow than against him. Weeks passed. Then months. Trade resumed. The pressure eased. Clara slept through the night without expecting footsteps outside her door. Spring came gently, as if rewarding restraint. Grass grew where fear had lived. One evening, as the sun lowered and the children laughed inside the house, Clara stood beside Elias on the porch and told him he had never asked her to stay. He told her freedom only mattered if it was chosen. She looked at the land, at the children who had accepted her not as property but as presents, and she chose. That night, a single lantern burned steady against the dark. No riders came. No whispers followed. The frontier, once loud with cruelty and convenience, finally fell silent, not because it was afraid, but because it had been reminded what honor looked like. And that silence, earned at great cost, was the loudest statement Elias Crow would ever make. Spring arrived quietly. Grass grew where fear once lived. Trade resumed. The ranch breathed again. Clara no longer slept like she might be taken in the night. Power does not like to lose quietly. The sheriff returned, not with riders, but with papers. County Review, he said stiffly. Claims of irregular practices. Elias read the document once, then tore it clean in half. You're standing on my land, he said. You can leave. The sheriff hesitated. He saw the wagons. The neighbors nearby. The children watching from the porch. This won't be forgotten, he warned. Elias's voice was steady. Neither will this. The sheriff left. He never came back. Because the frontier had decided something new. It was easier to stand with Elias Crow than against him. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Clara stood beside Elias on the porch. You never asked me to stay, she said. He nodded. Freedom only means something if it's chosen. She looked at the children, Samuel taller now, Ruth laughing, Caleb chasing fireflies. She looked at the land. I choose this, she said. Elias didn't smile. He didn't need to. A single lantern burned that night, steady against the dark. No riders came. No whispers followed. The frontier, once so loud with cruelty, finally fell silent. Not because of fear. But because one man, and one woman, refused to let it speak wrong ever again. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you what honor looks like, subscribe to the channel. Every story you watch helps keep voices like this alive.